There are growing calls for the country not to proceed with the Electoral Amendment Bill. This after the National Assembly has voted to pass the controversial bill to allow individuals to stand for elected office as independents. But it's been blasted by activists who are saying it won't achieve its intended goals. Organizations like OUTA, Build One South Africa and Solidarity are totally opposed to the bill. On this now, let's speak to Zaakirah Vadi from the Defend Our Democracy, and she's a campaign manager there. So good evening to you, ma'am, and thank you so much for your time.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Tell us about the aspect of this bill that you find unconstitutional. You also say this bill will erode the equality in the country. Tell us more.
So this bill is fundamentally flawed. I think it's yet to be tested whether these flaws are indeed constitutional. We think that it certainly may potentially not meet constitutional muster. There are elements of it that are particularly unfair to independent candidates. And an example of this is that political parties before an election would require 1,000 signatures, but independent candidates require about 8,000 signatures with ID numbers, etc. And this disparity is something that's found in different parts of the bill. Another example is that in the way seats are allocated, in the eventual calculation, for instance, if an independent candidate gets over and above the threshold needed for a seat, those additional votes get wasted. And once those votes are wasted, the quota works it out in such a way that the seats are distributed and will most likely benefit parties and the largest party itself. And I think that that is something that we find in various parts of the bill itself, but those are just two examples.
And just simplified for us, how will these deprive voters an opportunity to exercise their right when they vote?
Voting is the most fundamental aspect of our democracy. It's, when you can change an electoral system, you're tinkering with the very lifeblood of our democracy. If we are saying that each vote needs to be equal, so one person for one vote of equal value, the way in which the system will be run deprives voters in that regard, because some votes will be considered more equal than others, or some votes will have, a better chance of pushing through, particularly political parties, rather than independent candidates. So in essence, what we are saying is that this particular system may well disenfranchise voters rather than create the basis for equality when it comes to voting.
And what would be your appeal to the NCOP members to ensure that the Electoral Amendment Bill does not proceed?
Well, there's really two steps going forward for civil society organizations. And the first is this NCOP process. We believe that there may be a space for public participation once the NCOP process opens up. And our appeal to them is the same appeal that we made to political parties and to MPs yesterday, to reject this bill, to see the flaws in it, to take the time to analyze why it is flawed. Secondly, our appeal goes out to the President of the country. When this bill lands on his desk in a short space of time, the deadline for this is the 10th of December. We appeal to the President not to sign off on this flawed bill. From civil society side, I think we will be mobilizing. Although yesterday the vote did not go in our favor, we'll continue that mobilization work and call on other organizations throughout the country, as well as ordinary citizens, to join us in rejecting this bill and calling for meaningful and credible electoral reform.
Are you still keen to have a court action on this matter?
It is certainly something that civil society organizations will consider as part of the strategy going forward. Court action can only follow once this bill is passed and enacted into law. So it's something that I think will be considered at a later stage if this bill is signed into law.
And the bucks eventually will stop with President Cyril Ramaphosa, who will have to assent or shoot down the bill. What do you say to him?
Well, our appeal to the President again is to not sign this bill. It is a flawed bill, and he really needs to, I think, consider it very carefully before enacting it and signing it into law. As stated, civil society organizations will consider challenging it legally if it does go forward in this regard. And we must state that the 2024 elections are coming up in a very short space of time. And yesterday is when MPs proceeded with this bill, they have in fact put the 2024 elections into a very precarious position, because if the elections go on this particular bill, the result itself, the fairness of those results may be questioned. If there is a legal challenge to this, as there may well be, we know that shortens the space of time for the IEC to implement whatever processes it needs to implement before 2024. But this again is really the fault of MPs who haven't listened, have refused to listen to civil society organizations for the better part of 2 years.
Thank you so much indeed for your time. That was, of course, the Defend Our Democracy campaign's manager, Zaakirah Vadi.